The Spurs just made a sneaky great move as Brian Wright has went out and signed Bismack Biyombo, the veteran center in the NBA, a rim protector, to a 10-day deal, finally finding the replacement big man for Victor Wembanyama. This could be a short-term solution, but looks like a very good fit for the rest of the season. I got lots of reasons why. We'll discuss the implications of this signing and how it affects the Spurs front court moving forward coming up on this episode of Spurs Digest. You'll want to stick around. There's a lot to get into, but before we do, guys, 3/4 of you watching this video, I know I remind you all the time, but every time I remind you, a bunch of you subscribe. So hey, this is your spot for all the latest Spurs news, rumors, reports. It's completely free to subscribe. Let's get right into it. And then we got to start with the official report from Chris Haynes, free agent center Bismack Biyombo, and the San Antonio Spurs have agreed to a 10-day contract, league sources inform me. Now, we've been talking a lot about who the Spurs were going to bring in as their new backup center, of course, after trading Zach Collins to the Chicago Bulls in that 3-team trade that landed the Spurs De'Aaron Fox. There was a lot of questions as to the front court rotation, of course, with Sandro Mamukelashvili, Charles Bassey kind of being the default 5 options, maybe Sochan even sometimes at the 5, though that's not as, not as good a solution, I would say. But we looked at the buyout market in the last few days. A guy like Daniel Tice fit the bill. A guy like Mo Bamba, a shooting big man who can block shots. We thought all these guys might be good fits for the Spurs, but it's Bismack Biyombo, a guy who hasn't played since last season, who ends up getting signed to that 10-day deal, and I honestly think this is a phenomenal move. Now, if we just look at the depth chart, just to give you guys an idea of what it'll look like now. Now, look, they have Bismack Biyombo behind Sochan. I don't know why they have Sochan as like the third-string power forward backup center. Doesn't really make sense to me. I don't take that at its face, because obviously Sochan's going to be getting a lot more minutes. This is just ESPN's version of it, but it is clear that in terms of actual pure centers, it is Bismack Biyombo who will almost certainly be taking up that backup big role, at least for now. And I know a lot of you are probably already saying, well, Bismack Biyombo, like, he's barely played this year. Well, he hasn't at all, actually. And even last year, he played less than half the season. That's true. I mean, last season, he did only play 40 games. It was split between OKC and Memphis. His role was much bigger in Memphis. I feel like people forget he started 27 of the 30 games he played for Memphis just last season. And overall, he averaged 5.2 rebounds, 4.4 points, 1.3 assists, which is actually not bad, for especially on the assist numbers. Like, I gotta say, for a guy not playing that much in 20 minutes a game in 2023-24. So Bismack, I actually think, is a very, very good fit for the Spurs. But I got a few other things I want to dive into, specifically with Bismack Biyombo, as to why I think this works very well. So, look, this is a lot of information to take in. I'll make it bigger. Feel free to pause and have a look through. This is just his basketball reference page, but I'll direct you where to look. I know, weirdly, don't look at the highlighted row. That was an accident. Same thing with the next picture. But if we look at the 2023-24 season, right there at the bottom of the white region, 40 games, 27 starts, all of which came with Memphis. But I want to look more into Memphis's numbers, because OKC, again, they were like a great team. They were contending, and I do know that Memphis had injuries, which led to Biyombo playing as much as he did, but 56% from the field, only taking 4 shots a game in 24 minutes with them, averaging 5 points, 6.4 rebounds, 1.7 assists, and over a block a game. That's what Bismack Biyombo brings you. Don't expect him to shoot free throws. That's a bad idea. But just last year, he was a decent starter on an okay team, right? And we're just expecting him to play some backup minutes. Again, he's aging. He's 32 years old now, but still, that's not that old in the grand scheme of things. He's still very athletic. And look, if I play some highlight reels, like, this is over the last few years here. These are not like, this is not with Memphis last year, but he can still slam the ball like that. He can still fill his role. He can still score down low right there as he did on the Grizzlies. He's still a great player, I think, when you don't have to play him that much. And again, there's a reason that the OKC Thunder maybe only played him 7 minutes a game on their contending team where they had some other bigs. But the Spurs right now, if they're looking for that backup big, this is exactly what he's going to bring you. But the main thing is, again, the blocks and the defense. To have another guy and not have to rely on Victor Wembanyama all the time. Like we saw in yesterday's game. Yes, Stephon Castle went off. It was great. But the Spurs perimeter defenders continue to get lost. And it's really up to Wemby a lot of the time to bail them out. At least that's what I'm seeing. I don't know if you guys are seeing the same thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Call me out down below. But like, to me, that's what I'm seeing right now with the Spurs. A lot of the big men who are that second line of defense, the last line of defense, are being abused a lot. Now, the Spurs, of course, have to help way more than I'd like them to. But again, that's part of the problem. The perimeter guys are getting beat a lot more than I'd like. And the rim protection is there with Wemby. I mean, he gets lots of blocks still, of course. But after him, who else is there, right? And if we go back to the depth chart, I mean, What other rim protectors do you see on this roster? Charles Bassey, who's currently injured anyway. Like, Sandro's not really a rim protector. And then all your power forwards are guys who would be playing small forward if it was 10 years ago. Guys like Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, they could even play it today. Jeremy Sochan. So when it comes to rim protection, that's one thing Biyombo brings a lot. And the Spurs are already number 1 in the NBA in blocks per game. And that's without that backup big who can really block shots. And I think that if you can release a bit of pressure on Wemby, that's going to change a lot of things for this team because, again, he looks tired a lot of the time. He's looked frustrated with these losses. So to be able to have another guy like Bismack to come in and block shots, that's big. But it's not just the blocks either. I want to highlight some advanced stats from Bismack Biyombo that I want you guys to take a look at. And again, feel free to pause. I'll point you where I want you to look. This is a lot of info to take in, but for those of you familiar with Basketball Reference, it's probably not intimidating at all. But I want you to look at the DBPM column. So the fourth column in from the right, awards, VORP, BPM, and then DBPM. That's defensive box plus minus. In essence, a kind of way to normalize per 100 possessions or plus minus based on your defense on the team. Now, his offensive plus minus is bad. We know it's not good. We know he's not there to provide offense. He's not a guy who you can feed down in the post to score. He'll dunk it every now and then. Like if he's open down there, he'll catch a lob, but he's not one of those guys who's going to score in the post. That just is what it is. He's not going to shoot the ball. He's not shooting free throws well, but what he does do is play defense in the minutes that he's on the floor. That's exactly what we need, plus that veteran presence as well, right? He's not young. He knows what it takes to win, right? He's been on a lot of losing teams, but he's been on some decent teams as well. I think OKC last year. So in the DBPM column, you look at the last few years, just with Memphis in 30 games, a 1.6 DBPM, 1.4 the year before, 1.4 total last year, 2.5 2 years ago with Phoenix. Again, that doesn't mean a whole lot because DBPM is not really that stat that you want to use in a vacuum. But what it does indicate, at least in terms of trends, is that Bismack Biyombo, when he's on the floor, your team is going to be better defensively with him on the floor than with maybe your average player. Bismack Biyombo is going to fill that exact niche that Victor Wembanyama needs filled on that bench. Because right now, like I said, the shooting is questionable, which is why I personally was in favor of bringing in a guy like Mo Bamba or even Daniel Tice, guys that can at least prove that they can shoot the three. But at the same time, again, this is just a 10-day, right? This is just a 10-day deal. So if Bismack doesn't look like he's working, maybe the buyout market will still be open. The problem is this does use up a roster spot, I believe, for the moment. So if a guy like Tice or Bamba is about to get snagged, the Spurs can't really do much about it. But I actually fully expect this to be the guy the Spurs rock with for the rest of the season, simply for the reasons that I highlighted. He fills in a specific need and a weakness the Spurs have now. A backup to Wemby that can fill that rim protection role. That's a big hole right now for the Spurs, and we're seeing it almost every night now, right? We're seeing Wemby get more tired. We're seeing the guards getting beat, and when Wemby's not out there, it's a serious problem. So I want to know what you guys have to say. I think this is a perfect move. I think Brian Wright has hit a home run with this signing. Yeah, there's other guys maybe I would have preferred. I didn't even have Bismack on my radar, but maybe you guys did. Let me know down below. That'll do it for this episode of Spurs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. This is your home for all the latest Spurs news. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you in the next one.